You know what's more worse than awkward first date silence? Having to explain why you thought VelociPastor was the perfect movie for your first date. I've made this mistake multiple times, and after each failed date and concerned look, I've compiled the ultimate list of movies that will make your date block your number faster than me running away from my social obligations. Let me save you from my mistakes. Here are 20 films that absolutely killed my dating life. But before we begin, make sure to like this video and subscribe, or else I will show up on your next date and say to your date you did some weird stuff in 4th grade and she won't like you. VelociPastor is what happens when someone makes a movie with $3 in a crayon. The plot: a priest gets dinosaur powers from a magic rock and teams up with a hooker to fight crime. I am not even being slightly sarcastic there. And ninjas, because apparently that's where we're going with this. I actually showed this on a first date last year. Pro tip: when your date asks, "Is this a joke?" 5 minutes in and you have to explain that it's intentionally bad, you've already lost. It's like trying to explain why you still have a Nickelback poster. There's no coming back from that. The special effects make Windows 95 screensavers look like Avatar. There's literally a scene where instead of showing a car explosion, they just put text on screen that says VFX car on fire. That is not a joke. That actually happens. My date thought I was showing them an unfinished movie. I had to explain that no, this was the final cut. This is peak cinema. As soon as we put on the movie, they started texting immediately, probably updating their will. But the real magic happens when our priest raptor starts fighting evil. The dinosaur effects look like someone described a velociraptor to a blind person, who then described it to another blind person, who tried to make it using only pipe cleaners and hot glue. But apparently the movie was so good because my date developed a sudden family emergency right around the time the priest started making velociraptor noises that sound suspiciously like a cat coughing up a hairball. You know what's bad? When someone rather fake their own grandmother's 4th funeral this month than watch another minute of dinosaur priest action. The movie ends with what might be the worst CGI fight scene ever filmed, or possibly just someone waving action figures in front of a webcam. It's honestly hard to tell. But if you think a movie about a shape-shifting priest is a bad date choice, wait until we talk about Death Spa, where the only thing more deadly than the workout equipment is the awkward silence it creates. Death Spa is what happens when someone watches Final Destination at the gym and thinks not enough spandex. It's about a high-tech health club haunted by the owner's dead wife, who decides the best way to handle grief is by turning gym equipment into murder machines. I showed this on a first date a year ago with someone who said they were into fitness. Well, the movie opens with the most 80s sequence ever filmed. People in neon leotards doing synchronized aerobics while a computer system that looks like Windows 95's evil twin controls everything, because nothing says cutting edge technology like a haunted old computer. There's a scene where someone gets electrocuted in a tanning bed that looks like a microwave with delusions of grandeur. My date, who actually worked at the gym at the time, wouldn't stop pointing out how none of the equipment could actually malfunction this way. Thanks for the fact check. I'm sure that's the biggest problem with the possessed leg press that just turns someone into a human smoothie. The special effects make VelociPastor look like Avatar. Someone gets dissolved in a whirlpool that's literally just bathwater with Kool-Aid in it. The ghost wife can apparently hack computers because in the 80s, apparently they thought the future of fitness would somehow go digital. But the climax, ghost wife reveals herself through the gym's computer scene, looking like a Windows 95 screensaver having an existential crisis. Well, my date ended up calling an Uber right around the time the haunted weight rack gained sentience. I tried suggesting we go to the gym for our second date, but they blocked my number so fast it probably counted as cardio. The movie ends with the gym burning down, which is honestly the only reasonable response to haunted exercise equipment. By this point, I had been ghosted. There was no coming back from that one. But if Death Spa's haunted gym equipment sounds bad, wait until you see Neon Maniacs, where the monsters look like they got their costumes from the Spirit Halloween dumpster. And somehow that's not even the worst part of this movie. Basically, they raided a Spirit Halloween dumpster and called it a movie budget. Imagine if the Village people became slasher villains, but could only shop at Dollar Tree. I showed this on a first date with someone who said they appreciated vintage horror. Turns out they meant The Exorcist, not whatever crap this was. The plot? Well, a gang of monsters lives under the Golden Gate Bridge because even supernatural killers can't afford San Francisco rent. These aren't your standard monsters though. We've got a samurai, a Native American warrior, an army guy, and a doctor with a giant syringe. It's like someone threw a bag of random Halloween costumes down some stairs and filmed whatever fell out first. My date kept asking if we were watching the right movie or if I'd actually put on the middle school theater production. But here's the kicker. These creatures die when they touch water. They live under a bridge in San Francisco, where it's constantly foggy and rainy. That's like a vampire opening a tanning salon. When my date pointed this out, I tried defending the plot. Pro tip: if you're ever explaining why monsters living under a bridge being killed by water actually makes sense, just delete your dating profile now and go work on yourself. But the peak of cinematic achievement in this movie, the monsters attack with a high school battle of the bands. Picture this: a samurai warrior crashes a teenage rock concert, but the band keeps playing while people are getting murdered. Honestly, it was probably because their music was more horrifying than the actual design of these monsters. And when these things die, they melt like someone spilled green and Nickelodeon slime on the camera. My date left right around the time the Dr. Monster started chasing teenagers with his giant syringe, making puns that would make Freddy Krueger cringe. They blocked my number before the credits even rolled, which was honestly the most realistic thing that happened that night. But if you think discount Halloween monsters attacking a rock concert is bad, wait until you see Q, the Winged Serpent, where someone decided New York needs a flying lizard with an attitude problem and questionable tax returns. Basically, this movie is like Godzilla, but what if he did tax fraud? It's about a giant flying lizard terrorizing New York from the Chrysler Building, because even ancient Aztec gods appreciate good real estate. I showed this on a first date with someone a year ago who said they loved monster movies. They meant Cloverfield, not whatever dollar store kaiju this was. The special effects make neon maniacs look like Avatar, like I've said all the previous films, because they keep getting worse. When the serpent flies, it looks like someone's waving a rubber toy in front of a New York postcard while making airplane noises. But here's where it gets good. Instead of focusing on the giant flying death lizard, half the movie follows a small-time crook who finds the monster's nest and immediately thinks perfect time for extortion. That right, this guy discovers a mythological creature and his first thought is, how can I commit tax fraud with this? How does that even make sense? I tried defending this as a clever social commentary. It ended up with me getting blocked. Well, the monster itself looks like someone described a dragon to a toddler, then that toddler described it to their pet hamster, who then made it out of its poop. When it attacks people, it moves like a puppet being operated by someone having a sugar rush. There's a scene where it bites someone's head off that looks like a dinosaur toy eating a Barbie. The police's entire strategy is to shoot at it with regular guns, because when you're dealing with an ancient flying serpent god, clearly what you need is Dave from the police with his standard issue pistol. The climax of the movie involves the military finally showing up, probably after finishing their coffee and reading about the giant monster in the morning paper. By this point, I was getting ghosted and I knew it. But if you think a flying tax evading lizard is bad, wait until you see Zombie Nightmare, where Adam West trades his Batcave for a police badge, and somehow that's the least embarrassing career move in this film. Zombie Nightmare is what happens when someone watches Dawn of the Dead and thinks it needs more Batman. This masterpiece stars Adam West as a police captain investigating a zombie revenge spree, and it's exactly as unhinged as it sounds. I showed this on a date with someone who said they loved classic actors in unusual roles. Well, apparently they meant Vince Vaughn in something, not Batman looking like he wandered onto the wrong set and just decided to stay. The plot: a bodybuilder gets killed by drunk drivers, then a voodoo priestess brings him back for revenge, because apparently calling the actual police wasn't dramatic enough for this movie. The zombie makeup looks like they get kindergarten art class to do it 5 minutes before filming. Our undead hero looks less like a terrifying revenant and more like someone who fell asleep at a party and got drawn on with Sharpies. When he walks, it's with all the coordination of me trying to explain to my date why we're even watching this film to begin with. But the real star of this movie is Adam West, who delivers every line like he's reading ingredients off a cereal box during an earthquake. The entire movie is scored with budget heavy metal that sounds like it was recorded in someone's bathroom. Nothing says undead revenge quite like discount Twisted Sister playing while a zombie awkwardly power walks after its victims. Yeah, as you can tell, this is not a good movie. It all ends in a church showdown because even zombies appreciate good architecture and religion. By this point, I'm pretty sure my date had booked an appointment with their therapist and I was probably not getting a second one. I didn't. But if you think Batman versus a headbanging zombie is bad, wait until you see Bloodbeat, where a samurai ghost ruins Christmas dinner. And somehow, that's not even the strangest thing this family has to deal with. Bloodbeat is what happens when someone watches A Christmas Story and thinks, needs more horny samurai ghosts. It's a movie that proves your family's holiday dinner could actually be worse. At least your uncle's political rants don't come with supernatural sword fights. I saw this on a first date with someone who said they enjoyed unconventional holiday movies. They meant the Gremlins, not whatever Wisconsin fever dream this is. The plot: a family's Christmas gets crashed by a samurai spirit who's apparently very upset about not getting a secret Santa invite. Yes, I am serious. Everything starts normal, just your average Midwestern family preparing for Christmas. Then suddenly, one of them starts having psychic visions and getting intimate with an invisible samurai ghost. My date actually spat out her eggnog eggnog when I tried explaining this wasn't even the weirdest part of the movie yet. Here's the kicker. This ghost only manifests when someone in the house gets, excited. Yeah, this samurai spear is basically a supernatural mood ring for getting freaky. And trust me, this ghost is showing up a lot in this house, so something weird is going down in this family's household. The special effects budget was clearly spent on candy canes instead. When the samurai appears, it looks like someone filmed their Halloween costume through a gas station security camera. The sword fights have all the intensity of two kids playing with wrapping paper tubes, and my date started questioning their life choices right around the time the ghost started doing what I can only describe as paranormal TikTok dances. It all ends with the family fighting the ghost using antique samurai armor they conveniently had in their Wisconsin farmhouse, because apparently that's a totally normal thing to keep next to your Christmas stockings. By this point, my date was already on their phone looking up how to get out of bad movie date without being rude. Spoiler alert, they were rude. But if you think a sexually frustrated samurai ghost ruining Christmas is bad, wait until you see The Spider Baby, where a family makes the Addams family look like the Brady Bunch. And that's before we get to the cannibalism part. This was made in 1967, and it follows a family with a genetic condition that makes them regress into primitive killers. Think your worst family reunion possible, then add murder. I showed this on a first date with someone who said they loved classic black and white horror. They meant Psycho, not whatever family therapy session from hell this is. The plot? A chauffeur named Bruno plays babysitter to three siblings with Meier syndrome. This is a condition that makes them act like murderous toddlers with a hunger for human flesh. The real star in this movie, though, is Virginia, a teenage girl who treats murder like it's a fun TikTok trend. She has this adorable habit of playing spider with visitors, which ends exactly how you expect, with a lot of stabbing and very few survivors. When I tried explaining this was the cute part of the movie, my date's hand moved visibly closer to the front door, and they left. Because being in black and white somehow makes it worse, because your imagination has to do all the heavy lifting here. There's a dinner scene where they're eating something. The movie lets you decide if it's a pork chop or their previous dinner guests. Yeah, the family's home security system is just letting people walk in and hoping they don't walk out. And this whole movie ends with the mansion burning down, which is honestly the most normal thing that has happened in this whole movie. And by this point, I was not getting a second date, obviously. But if you think a family of cannibalistic spider children is bad, wait until you see The Astrologer, where your zodiac sign might kill you. And that's somehow the least crazy thing about this movie. The Astrologer is what happens when someone reads their horoscope on mushrooms and decides to make a movie about it. It follows an astrologer who uses his cosmic powers for diamond smuggling, because apparently Mercury in retrograde is great for crime. I showed this on a first date with someone who said they were into astrology. They didn't like me because I was a Scorpio, but whatever. They definitely did not want to watch a man use star charts to become the Zodiac's Pablo Escobar. What's the plot of this movie? Alexei uses his powers to predict the future, find the next Virgin Mary, and commit grand larceny. Just typical Sagittarius behavior, really. Everyone in this movie acts like they're in completely different films. Our lead performs like he's in Scarface, while everyone else thinks they're in a community theater production of Hair. There's a scene where Alexei predicts the future using what appears to be a disco ball having an existential crisis. Yeah, the special effects look like someone threw glitter at the camera and called it space. When Alexei uses his powers, it's filmed through what I can only describe as a kaleidoscope having a stroke while being on acid. Yeah, every major plot point is announced by zooming in on a zodiac symbol while playing music that sounds like a synthesizer falling down an elevator shaft. And to top it all off, the third act involves finding someone with the same zodiacal potential as the Virgin Mary, whatever that means. And it ends with, honestly, I've seen this movie 3 times now, and I'm still not sure what happens. Something about destiny, reincarnation, and tax fraud. It's always tax fraud. You can never escape tax fraud. And by this point, I knew I wasn't getting a second date, because let's be honest, I'm gonna be lonely forever. But if you don't want to be lonely forever, you should like this video and subscribe, because it'll do absolutely nothing for your love life, but you'll be able to watch this video right here, which is more first movies you shouldn't watch on a first date.